Think about the last time you stepped into an elevator. You pressed the button, the doors closed, and somewhere in those few seconds of waiting, you looked up. Or maybe to the side, and there it was, a mirror. You probably glanced at yourself without even thinking about it. Maybe fixed your hair, maybe avoided eye contact with the stranger standing 2 feet away from you. And then the doors opened, and you walked out, and you forgot about it completely. But here's the thing, someone put that mirror there on purpose, and the reason isn't what most people assume. The obvious guess is that it's about safety, so you can see who's behind you, or so the space feels less cramped. And sure, those things play a role, but the actual story behind why mirrors became a standard feature in elevators is rooted in something far more human and, honestly, a little surprising when you first hear it. It goes back to the mid-20th century, when elevators were becoming a normal part of city life. Buildings were getting taller, and people were riding elevators more than ever. But there was a problem, a very consistent, very frustrating problem. People were complaining, not about the elevators breaking down or being unsafe. They were complaining that the elevators were too slow. Building managers were getting flooded with complaints, and engineers were genuinely puzzled because, by the technical standards of the time, the elevators were actually running at a perfectly reasonable speed. So someone brought in a consultant, and this consultant didn't look at the machinery, or the cables, or the motor speed. He looked at the people, and what he noticed was simple. When there's nothing to do, time stretches. Those 40 seconds of standing in a small box with strangers, staring at a closed metal door, felt like 2 minutes. The problem wasn't the elevator. The problem was the waiting. His solution was to add mirrors, not to make the space look bigger, not for safety, but to give people something to do. When you have a mirror in front of you, you naturally start doing things. You check your reflection, you adjust something, you become aware of how you're standing. And while you're doing all of that, those 40 seconds actually feel like 40 seconds instead of an eternity. The complaints dropped almost immediately after mirrors were installed, not because the elevators got faster, because people stopped noticing how slow they were. There's a name for this phenomenon in psychology. It's related to something researchers call occupied time versus unoccupied time. When your brain has something to process, even something as small and mundane as glancing at your own face, it experiences the passage of time differently. Unoccupied waiting feels much longer than it actually is, and elevator designers almost accidentally stumbled onto one of the most elegant solutions to that problem: a reflective surface that costs almost nothing but keeps your brain just busy enough. So the mirror isn't just decoration, it's essentially a very low-tech way of hacking your perception of time. And once you know this, you start noticing it everywhere. Waiting rooms with something on the walls, restaurants that pipe in music at just the right tempo, grocery stores designed so that you always have something to look at as you walk through. A huge amount of the designed world around us is quietly managing how time feels to us, not just how it actually passes. The elevator mirror is just one of the clearest examples because it's so contained. You walk in, the doors close, and for a brief moment, you're in a controlled little environment where designers have made very deliberate choices. And the most deliberate choice of all turns out to be that mirror, which you've probably looked into hundreds of times without ever wondering why it was there. There's something almost comforting about that, in a strange way. The fact that someone, decades ago, paid close attention to a very ordinary human frustration, the feeling that waiting takes too long, and found a solution that was so simple it became invisible. It didn't require new technology or expensive redesigns. It just required understanding how people actually experience time when they're stuck in a small space with nothing to do. Next time you step into an elevator and catch yourself glancing at your reflection, you'll know you're not just checking your hair. You're doing exactly what that mirror was designed to make you do, and it's working perfectly.